Welcome to the deep dive. This is our strategic briefing, really designed for leaders navigating, well, this explosive growth we're seeing in the everything as a service economy.
Uh-huh. It's everywhere now.
It is. And our mission today really is to unpack a pretty profound shift in commercial reality.
Which
And
okay.
the moment a sales promise is made, that deal is signed, it instantly transforms. It becomes an operational liability assumed by the entire enterprise.
Right. Not just sales anymore.
Exactly. So we're deep diving into the source material that emphatically redefines fulfillment, logistics, warehousing, delivery. It's redefining it as the definitive front line of revenue integrity.
Yeah. And this isn't just about saving a few bucks on shipping.
No, not at all. It's about guaranteeing the profit, the actual realized profit from every single deal.
And what's really crucial for executives, I think, especially commercial leaders, CROs, heads of sales, it's grasping the complete conceptual shift needed here.
Okay.
We absolutely have to move past that old-fashioned idea of logistics as just some back office cost center we kind of put up with.
Right, the necessary evil kind of thing.
Exactly. It needs reframing. It's got to be seen as a critical strategic lever, something that actually determines your brand equity, that validates your product's value, and, crucially, drives that long-term customer lifetime value, LTV.
Makes sense.
Because look, if we consistently fail to deliver on the expectations we set out there in the marketplace, well, sustainable growth just becomes impossible. It really does.
And that operational reality, that transformation of a sales agreement into this company-wide responsibility, that's what the sources are calling the living commitment.
Precisely. That's the term. And order, especially in today's, dynamic digital world, it just cannot be treated as some static record that you just hand off and forget about.
Throwing it over the wall to operations.
Exactly that. It's going to be a continuously validated, dynamically optimized, and perpetually communicated promise. It has to stay alive.
Alive, meaning?
Meaning it needs centralized oversight, active management, right from the initial quote generation, the very start of quote to cash, Q2C, all the way through final delivery, payment, and critically, revenue recognition, the whole life cycle.
Okay, so let's unpack the strategic implications, especially for the commercial side. The sources are suggesting the CRO is now essentially the chief promise officer. That sounds like, wow, a pretty heavy mantle, especially when you think the CRO already bridges the people side, sales, relationships, market stuff, with the rigorous mathematical side, risk, profits, costs.
It is a heavy mantle. And the challenge really stems from the fact that just generating pipeline isn't enough anymore.
Right. Filling the funnel isn't the whole job.
Not even close. That old mandate, it's incomplete now. The modern CRO's main responsibility is making sure the systems, the processes supporting the sales machine are actually capable of delivering the targets they promise. If you've got structural inefficiencies, maybe poor inventory visibility, or, really long delivery lead times, all that hard work, all that commercial effort, it gets systematically nullified by operational failure.
So sales hits their number, but the company loses.
Precisely. It's this vicious cycle. Sales wins the deal, but the organization hemorrhages margin and, maybe worse, trust.
And those failures, they're not just like inconvenient service hiccups. They translate directly into some pretty devastating costs, both financial and, I imagine, human resource costs, too. We hear a lot about the high stakes for commercial leaders.
Oh, the statistics are, frankly, alarming. The tenure of a modern CRO, it's inherently high risk. Why? Because they're often judged not just on sales potential, but on actual sales realization.
Okay.
I mean, the data shows 62% of companies either stall or actually shrink after a CRO exits.
Wow, 62%.
Yeah, and this high turnover, it often gets pinned on the leader, right? But frequently the real root cause is that they inherited systems simply incapable of delivering the commercial targets.
So they walk into a broken machine.
Exactly, a deeply entrenched mess of structural inefficiencies that just make promise-keeping impossible, especially at scale.
Okay, let's get granular about those costs then. We need like a revenue linkage map. Looking beyond just the simple margin hits, what are the specific, maybe hidden costs that traditional sales metrics just don't capture?
Right. Well, the first one, and maybe the most corrosive, is customer churn, attrition.
Losing customers.
Yeah. And it's often triggered by really predictable operational failures. Late shipments, missing parts, poor communication, especially reactive communication, only talking when something's gone wrong. This is pure trust erosion. And The metric every single commercial leader needs to be tracking obsessively is the delivery-related churn rate.
Delivery-related churn rate, okay.
If that rate starts creeping above, say, a 5% threshold, you are already experiencing systemic trust erosion. That threatens the long-term health of your customer base.
Maybe if it gets higher.
A 10% delivery-related churn rate. That's catastrophic. It signals a complete failure of your fulfillment promise. You're actively pushing customers away.
Ouch. Okay. And then there are the internal costs. You mentioned friction between teams.
Yeah, that's the internal friction and rework. We label that alignment debt.
Alignment debt. I like that term.
It's the financial penalty you pay when sales forecasts completely ignore realistic capacity constraints. For instance, sales might promise these super aggressive volume targets, maybe for a Q4 push,
Right.
without ever checking if the warehouse can actually staff up, or if logistics can secure the trucks to ship that volume in the next quarter.
So promises made in a vacuum.
Exactly. And the sources suggest this alignment debt can cost organizations up to, get this, 25% of their annual revenue.
25%.
Yeah. In wasted labor, rework because things were rushed or done wrong, emergency procurement at premium prices, missed market opportunities because you couldn't deliver. It is literally the cost of people inside your company working against each other instead of together.
25%. That's a number that should make any CFO, any CEO really sit up and pay attention.
It absolutely should.
What about the sort of slower administrative leakage, the back-end stuff?
Yeah, that usually shows up later in the order-to-cash cycle, the O2C process.
Okay.
We see things like billing mismatches, the invoice doesn't match the delivery, missing credits for items that were partially fulfilled or maybe lost in transit, lengthy disputes trying to reconcile it all.
Which slows everything down.
Massively. It slows down your cash conversion cycle, which ties up precious working capital. It also significantly increases your audit risk. And fundamentally, it just raises the overall cost to serve the CTS for every single transaction.
So even if you're hitting volume targets.
Right. Even if sales volume looks great on paper, if your cost to serve is inflated because of all this administrative leakage and rework, the company is just running faster to stand still. You're not actually getting ahead.
Okay, so if we're in these saturated markets where maybe product features and pricing are easily copied, where does that sustainable competitive advantage actually come from?
It shifts. It shifts almost entirely to distribution differentiation.
Distribution differentiation, meaning?
Meaning how you deliver.
Yeah.
Customers now, especially in this everything as a service world, they expect instant availability, maybe personalized packaging, definitely reliable, often ultra-fast delivery options. When that fulfillment reliability becomes the ultimate proof point of your brand's value proposition, that creates a competitive moat. It's far harder for competitors to cross than just, developing a similar product feature.
It's the tangible proof.
It's the tangible manifestation of trust. It's keeping the promise visibly.
And that reframing then, seeing fulfillment not as this mandatory cost, but as a strategic brand investment center, that seems absolutely vital for getting executive buy-in across the board.
It is absolutely vital because when that delivery moment is flawless, when it's transparent, totally reliable, it pays massive commercial dividends.
How so?
Well, first, reliability stabilizes your cash flow because disputes just plummet. Second, it actually increases sales volume because customers actively choose the reliable option, even if it costs a bit more.
Right. Peace of mind.
Exactly. And third, maybe most importantly, it drives a willingness from consumers, from buyers, to pay higher prices. It moves your brand into a premium category. You are essentially buying brand equity with every single successfully executed commitment.
Okay, so if the stakes are really that high, we absolutely need to change our fundamental mindset about this, our architectural mindset even. Let's dive deeper into this living commitment idea, this transition away from the static order, that administrative black box, towards something dynamic.
Right. The integrity of the order, you see, is perpetually tied to the integrity of the promise.
Yeah.
We'll often focus on the order-to-cash cycle, the O2C, execution, logistics, payment, the back end. Yeah. But the revenue integrity crisis often starts much, much earlier. It starts during quote-to-cash, the QTC phase. That's where the sales team is setting the initial delivery timelines, setting the pricing, supposedly based on availability.
Supposedly being the operative word there.
Often, yes. So a true living commitment demands meticulous, centralized validation and tracking right from the moment that quote is accepted. It makes the entire Q2C and O2C cycle one unified risk-managed process.
That operational speed then,
Yeah.
It becomes a direct KPI for the CRO, right?
Yeah.
A working capital KPI. How directly does that process velocity translate into financial performance?
Oh, very directly. A fast, optimized O2C process means you accelerate revenue realization. Simple as that.
Cash comes in faster.
Cash comes in the door sooner, which in turn reduces your reliance on short-term credit lines, and it frees up working capital for core growth initiatives. Maybe that's R&D, maybe it's market expansion, whatever. Think about it. If your fulfillment cycle takes, say, 20 days longer than your closest competitors, that capital is tied up on your books. It's stuck. That puts you at an automatic significant disadvantage. Speed really is money in this context.
So to support this this living commitment, the sources are emphasizing rigorous validation across 3 core pillars, ideally checked not just once, but continuously. Let's start with the operational prerequisite, inventory certainty.
Yeah, inventory certainty, or often called available to promise, ATP. This is absolutely non-negotiable.
Why?
Because if a sales promise isn't backed by real-time, actually committed inventory, then that promise is.
Yeah.
Well, frankly, it's fraudulent from a feasibility standpoint.
You're selling something you don't actually have confirmed.
Precisely. And this requires advanced systems, specifically distributed order management systems, DOM, which we'll definitely get into more detail on. They're designed to eliminate overselling. And crucially, ATP doesn't just count what's physically on the shelf right now. It must account for inventory that's already committed to other orders, inventory that's currently in transit, and also necessary safety stock levels.
Ah, so it's a net calculation.
Exactly. If you only look at the raw quantity available, you're almost guaranteed to risk overselling inventory that is functionally unavailable for that new order.
Got it. But product availability isn't the only constraint, is it? I mean, we can have the product sitting there, but not the means to actually move it.
You're absolutely right. That brings us neatly to the second pillar, capacity certainty.
Okay.
This moves beyond just having the product. It's about validating the capacity of the entire logistics network. Can the designated warehouse actually handle the volume spike from this new order or promotion? Do we physically have the labor available on the floor for picking and packing? Are the transportation assets, the trucks, the containers, maybe the slots with third-party carriers, are they actually available for the promised delivery date? This demands linking those commercial demands, those sometimes ambitious sales targets, with the hard supply-side reality. It ensures the commitment is grounded in verifiable operational capability, not just, wishful thinking.
Right, grounded in reality. And the third pillar, that sounds like it's about making sure the deal is actually worth the effort before we commit resources.
That's exactly. Financial validation. Before that item gets picked off the shelf, before it gets packed, before it gets shipped, essentially, before you allocate valuable physical resources and incur costs, the commitment itself must be financially sound.
So checking.
Checking things like real-time credit management, making sure the customer's payment capability is solid, using sophisticated payment capture validation like AVS-CVV checks, and having robust fraud prevention integrated right there at the point of sale, not as an afterthought.
Because otherwise,
you've potentially wasted all those fulfillment costs, the labor, the shipping, the opportunity cost of that inventory on a deal you were never actually going to get paid for.
Yeah.
Pure loss.
Okay. This operational integrity, it leads directly into the financial and maybe even legal dimensions, specifically thinking about revenue recognition rules like ASC 606. For our listeners, the commercial execs, how does this fulfillment integrity directly influence that financial standard?
Right. ASC 606. For those of you maybe less familiar, it dictates precisely when a company is legally allowed to recognize revenue on its books.
Okay.
And for products and services that have a physical fulfillment component, the delivery itself usually constitutes the primary performance obligation under that standard.
Meaning you have to deliver it to count the revenue.
Essentially, yes. If that delivery stalls, or if it fails, or even if it's significantly delayed beyond agreed terms, that performance obligation is considered unfulfilled, which means you cannot recognize the revenue for that period.
Oof. That sounds like it could cause major headaches for quarterly reporting.
Huge headaches. And it creates uncertainty for investors, for the market. A delayed shipment isn't just a customer service issue anymore. It's a potential financial liability that can literally stall the recognition of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars in expected revenue.
Wow. Okay, so the impact cascades.
It absolutely cascades. And the delays themselves create further financial liabilities. If inventory sits too long because it couldn't ship, you incur increased warehousing fees. Then, if you have to scramble to fix the delay, You might pay penalties to the customer, or you fork out huge sums for costly emergency high-speed shipments.
Trying to make good on the original promise.
Exactly. And all of that directly erodes the gross margin that was projected way back during the initial, quote, stage. You might have thought you sold that product at a healthy 40% margin, but the operational failure, the recovery costs, they reduce the actual realized margin down to maybe 15% or even less.
Which means you need systems that can track that erosion in real time.
Precisely. This necessitates real-time reconciliation of projected versus actual fulfillment costs. And that's something legacy systems, frankly, just cannot do effectively.
Okay, so given this need for real-time reconciliation, continuous validation, this whole living commitment idea, it seems pretty clear the traditional IT stack just isn't up to the task. It can't handle it. So what specific architecture is required? And maybe let's dig into why legacy systems fail this revenue mandate so miserably.
Yeah, the failure of legacy systems is it's structural, it's fundamental. They were designed for much simpler, more linear supply chains.
Right. Send order to warehouse A, done.
Exactly. Pass an order to a single fulfillment node, usually a big distribution center, which then became this sort of fulfillment black box. You didn't have much visibility inside. And the data they generate is incredibly siloed, often relies on batch processing, overnight updates, meaning your inventory data could be hours, if not a full day, old.
Which is useless for real-time promises.
Totally useless. Imagine a sales team, maybe in Europe, quoting a delivery date based on inventory data that was last synced overnight from a DC back in North America. You're guaranteeing overselling. It creates critical revenue risk.
And they're probably rigid, too.
Incredibly rigid.
Yeah.
That architecture just constrains flexibility. It makes it almost impossible to adapt quickly to omni-channel demands, buy online, pick up in-store, ship from store, or just generally evolving customer expectations for speed and choice.
Okay, so enter distributed order management. DOM. This sounds like something the CRO needs to see, not just as an IT tool, but as a really strategic RevOps priority. What's its core function?
You nailed it. DOM acts as the crucial connective tissue. It's the authoritative data hub across the entire fulfillment network. Its absolute core function is providing a single, unified, real-time view of inventory across all possible locations.
All locations, like?
Like your own distribution centers, your physical retail stores if you have them, your 3PL partners, maybe even inventory held by your vendors. Anywhere an order could potentially be fulfilled from.
Wow, okay.
This single source of truth dictates the absolute limits of what sales can credibly promise. Yeah, it makes that available to promise calculation genuinely reliable for the first time.
And this unified view allows for true fulfillment orchestration, right? Can you give us an example? How does DOM's logic actually optimize fulfillment in practice?
Absolutely. Orchestration means it applies complex, often predefined business rules, but it applies them dynamically, in real time, based on the order's specifics.
Okay.
So for example, let's say a large enterprise order comes in. It requires 3 specific high-value, maybe high-margin items. The DOM might be configured with rules to prioritize sourcing those items from a specific high-margin DC, even if that DC is slightly further away geographically. Why? To protect the overall profitability of that strategic deal.
Makes sense. Protect the margin. What about a different scenario?
Okay, conversely, maybe a small, single-item consumer order comes in, low value. The DOM might trigger a ship-from-store rule if that's set up. It routes the order to the closest retail location that has the item.
Why do that?
To minimize carrier cost and maximize delivery speed for that consumer. This is what enables efficient buy online, pick up in-store BOVIDOR strategies too. It's like an intelligent traffic controller for orders, constantly prioritizing based on the desired outcome. Could be service level, could be cost, could be margin protection, or usually some blend of all three.
The sources also mentioned DOM simplifying reverse logistics. Returns.
Yeah.
How does that protect margin? Because returns usually feel like pure cost.
They often are margin killers if they're mishandled. But a sophisticated DOM system doesn't just, blindly accept the return and send it back somewhere. It routes it intelligently.
How so?
Okay, if an item is fast-moving, maybe easily resellable, the DOM routes it back to the nearest retail store or the primary DC for immediate inspection and restocking. Get it back into sellable inventory fast. But the item is maybe high value, but often requires refurbishment or special handling. The DOM can route it directly to a specialized repair facility, bypassing the main DC altogether.
Avoiding unnecessary touches.
Exactly. This protects the product margin by minimizing warehousing time for returns, reducing handling costs, and ensuring the product re-enters the sales pipeline either as new or refurbished, as quickly and efficiently as possible.
I can really see how that real-time ATP, fueled by a system like DOM, must just eliminate so much chaos and give sales teams genuine confidence when they quote delivery times.
It fundamentally tackles that revenue risk of reactive overselling we talked about, because DOM maintains up-to-the-second stock levels across the whole network, and it handles dynamic inventory allocation. Meaning, for example, new inventory that's already on a truck in transit to a DC can be intelligently pre-allocated by the DOM based on real-time demand, channel requirements, or order urgency before it even hits the dock.
Wow. So you're allocating incoming stock proactively.
Yes. This ensures the sales team can, quote, delivery times with absolute certainty, because their promise is directly linked to the operational reality governed by the DOM. The operational reality becomes the guardrail for the commercial ambition, rather than an afterthought.
And that links right back to profitability, doesn't it? Through that dynamic optimization you mentioned, creating those margin points post-sale.
That ability to dynamically optimize is the profit engine of a modern DOM. Think about peak season, right? Carrier rates can fluctuate wildly hour by hour.
Yeah, surge pricing everywhere.
Exactly. The DOM's algorithms don't just find the warehouse that's physically closest. They calculate the total fulfillment cost, including shipping in real time, against the required service level for that customer or order type. Then, they automatically route the order to the location that achieves the target delivery speed at the lowest possible total cost.
So it's constantly balancing speed and cost.
Constantly. This sophisticated logic maintains the financial integrity of the deal that promised margin we keep talking about. Even when external conditions like shipping costs are highly volatile, it effectively shifts resource allocation decisions from manual guesswork or static rules to automated, data-driven, profit-maximizing optimization.
Okay, so we've established the architectural foundation with DOM. That gives us the real-time visibility and control. Now, how do we layer intelligence on top of that to protect the living commitment proactively? This feels like moving beyond just tracking where things are to genuinely forecasting and mitigating risk before it happens.
Exactly. We have to move into what's called predictive supply chain visibility, or PSCV.
PSCV, okay.
Traditional visibility, the tracking number lookup, it's reactive. It tells you where a shipment is right now, or maybe where it was scanned last. PSCV is fundamentally proactive.
Wow.
It forecasts the shipment's future status, it predicts its precise arrival time, and maybe more importantly, its likelihood of disruption. It does this by blending real-time tracking data with vast amounts of historical performance data, external factors like weather patterns, port congestion data, traffic data, and applying advanced machine learning algorithms.
So it sees problems coming.
It anticipates disruptions,
Yeah.
weather delays, port backups, customs bottlenecks. It flags these potential issues before they impact the shipment, allowing for preemptive intervention.
If that visibility is truly accurate, the commercial impact must be pretty profound, protecting that customer experience.
It's a critical defense against revenue leakage, particularly the leakage caused by customer churn due to poor delivery experiences. PSCV generates accurate but also dynamic estimated times of arrival ETAs.
Dynamic meaning they update.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the ETA changes because of an unforeseen event, maybe a storm pops up or there's sudden congestion, the system immediately updates the expectation and ideally communicates that proactively. This transparency sets realistic expectations, minimizes customer frustration, and transforms what used to be reactive damage control into proactive incident management.
You also mentioned AI functioning as an unbiased mediator. We talked earlier about that persistent friction sales pushing for volume, operations constrained by physical reality. How does AI help there?
AI provides the objective, data-driven truth that can resolve or at least significantly reduce that friction. It helps transform rigid, often annual or quarterly, supply chain planning into more continuous adaptive processes through things like advanced scenario analysis.
Can you give an example?
Sure. AI-driven demand forecasting, for instance, can predict a likely surge in demand for a specific SU in a specific region much more accurately than traditional methods. It can then automatically inform production schedules and procurement needs way upstream.
So avoiding stockouts or overstock.
Exactly. Optimizing inventory levels to mitigate costly stockouts on one hand, or expensive capital-tying overstock on the other. It essentially tells both sales and operations, based on data, what is truly feasible to promise and deliver.
Any other examples?
Yeah, AI tools can even act as co-pilots right inside the warehouse, suggesting dynamic replenishment paths for pickers based on real-time order flow, or helping supervisors allocate labor based on fluctuating workload priorities across different zones. It brings intelligence right down to the operational execution level.
So the overarching goal here is to actively pinpoint vulnerabilities and mitigate that expensive alignment debt before it ever really manifests.
Yes, and perhaps the most powerful application of this intelligence layer is identifying and flagging specific at-risk orders in real time.
At-risk orders, how does that work?
AI models can analyze literally thousands of variables simultaneously for every single order that's currently in motion. Things like the specific carrier's historical reliability score on that particular shipping lane, current transit time volatility, weather forecasts along the route, even internal factors like potential staging discrepancies at the DC.
Wow.
And based on all that, it generates a predictive risk score for every single living order, a probability of it failing to meet its committed delivery window.
And this functions as the ultimate early warning trigger, presumably for the commercial side. The sales team, customer service, they get an alert before the customer even knows there might be a problem.
That speed, that proactivity is everything. It allows for immediate strategic intervention. Let's take an example. Say a high-value order destined for a key corporate client gets flagged by the AI with an 85% calculated risk of arriving 48 hours late.
Okay.
The system doesn't just sit on that information. It alerts the designated account manager or maybe a specialized customer success team.
And then they can.
They can immediately, proactively contact the customer. Explain the situation honestly. Offer a mitigation plan. Maybe it's a partial refund or discount. Maybe it's initiating an expedited rerouting strategy using a premium carrier, which the company pays for. Maybe it's offering an alternative product option that could arrive on time.
So you turn a negative into a positive.
Exactly. It transforms a potential delivery failure, which would normally be a moment of revenue leakage, trust erosion, maybe even customer loss, into a genuine trust-building service moment. It shows you're watching, you care, and you're fixing it before they even had a complaint.
Right. So the technology gives us the architecture, the DOM, and the intelligence layer, the AI and PSCV. But as we've touched on, if the organization itself, the structure, the incentives, if they're fragmented, we'll probably still hemorrhage revenue, won't we? Let's dive deeper into what's actually needed to eliminate this alignment debt.
Yeah, alignment debt. Just to recap, it's that financial drag, that friction that builds up when different functions, typically sales, operations, finance, operate with fundamentally divergent goals and metrics.
Working at cross purposes.
Exactly. If sales is solely focused on maximizing volume, maybe at the expense of profitability or deliverability, and operations is solely focused on minimizing costs, perhaps without fully considering service-level impact. The result is this constant friction. The sources say it can cost up to 25% of annual revenue.
And it manifests how? Day to day.
It manifests as a lack of trust. Sales constantly questioning the inventory data they're given. Operations viewing sales promises as unrealistic, maybe even irresponsible fantasies. Constant finger-pointing when things go wrong.
Okay, so what's the strategic, maybe the operational answer to force that integration, to break down those silos?
It really requires formalizing cross-functional integration. The most effective mechanism for this is usually a robust sales and operations planning process, S&OP.
S&OP, that's been around a while, but maybe needs revitalizing.
It often does. And it absolutely must be championed right from the top. The CRO and the COO need to co-own it. S&OP acts as the core strategic process to align those ambitious sales targets with the realistic, verifiable capabilities of production, inventory, and fulfillment.
Sounds simple, but probably hard politically.
It's often the politically hardest part of the transformation because it forces different teams, different leaders to commit to shared numbers, shared accountability. But it's essential. It maximizes overall profitability by ensuring that every deal promised is actually feasible and profitable to deliver.
And the sources also emphasize the need for mandatory, structured communication rhythms, not just relying on S&OP cycles. Tell us about this concept of the revenue fulfillment sync meeting.
Right. This is more tactical, more frequent. High-performing organizations require these structured communication rhythms. This sync meeting is typically a focused weekly meeting, maybe 45 to 60 minutes max.
Who attends?
It absolutely must involve senior leadership representatives from sales, from supply chain or logistics, and critically from finance or revenue operations, RevOps.
And the goal?
The goal isn't just to share status reports or spreadsheets. It's to ensure collective ownership of exceptions, liabilities, and risks. The agenda has to be rigorous.
Like what?
Reviewing specific fulfillment exceptions from the previous week, what went wrong and why. Analyzing pattern-based buyer behavior and its impact on current or future capacity. And critically, discussing those specific at-risk orders that the AI intelligence layer has flagged. The whole discussion needs to focus on clarity, on deciding how to deploy resources, and defining actionable next steps, not just admiring vanity metrics.
Okay, let's talk incentives. Because arguably, the sales compensation plan is the single most influential driver of organizational culture and behavior.
Absolutely.
If reps are rewarded solely for closing deals fast, irrespective of the downstream operational headache or the low margin they might create, well, you're basically incentivizing chaos, aren't you?
You absolutely are. And that's the crucial pivot point for the CRO leading this transformation. Shared accountability becomes paramount. Sales and fulfillment must align on mutually owned metrics. Things like customer acquisition cost, CAS, customer retention rates, and definitely the perfect order rate, PONR.
Okay. But how do you bake that into comp? The sources talk about a fulfillment multiplier.
Yes. To truly embed this idea of revenue integrity into the sales DNA, the compensation plan itself has to incorporate a fulfillment multiplier.
Tying a portion of commission directly to operational metrics for those deals, that sounds, well, like something sales teams might strongly resist initially. How do you actually implement that without causing a mass revolt?
The resistance is definitely real. Because, let's be honest, it forces sales reps and sales leaders to think beyond just getting the signature on the contract.
Right, they have to care about what happens next.
They do. The key to making it work is balance and transparency. The multiplier can't, eliminate their commission if an order hits a snag, but it must be significant enough to matter. Say, maybe 10% to 15% of the total potential commission payout for a deal is tied directly to the operational success of their deals. Measured by concrete metrics like the perfect order rate for their orders, or maybe the, quote, accuracy rate. How often was the delivery time they quoted actually met? This compels the sales team to prioritize deals that are not just large, but strategic, profitable, and reliable. It forces them to actually check capacity constraints or realistic lead times before quoting ambitious delivery timelines. It fundamentally shifts the entire sales culture from maximizing raw volume to maximizing profitable, reliable delivery.
And finally, underpinning all of this collaboration, all these meetings and shared metrics, is data transparency.
Absolutely. You can't collaborate effectively if you're all looking at different numbers. Informational silos are the absolute root cause of alignment debt. All teams, sales, ops, finance, service, must operate from a single shared source of operational truth.
Which is facilitated by?
Facilitated primarily by that DOM system we discussed. It becomes the central hub. But this also requires a bit of a mindset shift, particularly in finance.
How so?
The traditional monolithic ERP system, while essential for financials, simply cannot handle the speed and granularity required for real-time O2C velocity management and cost reconciliation. Finance needs to accept that the ERP transitions to being the system of final record, the system of accounting truth. But it must integrate seamlessly with and trust the granular operational data coming in real time from the DOM, from logistics platforms, from the warehouse systems, to get that instant insight into fulfillment costs, potential liabilities, and true margin integrity.
Okay, so if the name of the game truly is revenue integrity, then we absolutely have to move beyond measuring just simple volume or top-line revenue. Let's look at this integrated KPI scorecard the sources talk about. The metrics that prove this transformation is actually working and measure the absolute integrity of that commercial promise.
Right. We need a balanced set of metrics that drive mutual accountability across those key dimensions we've been discussing. So first, for reliability and trust.
Okay.
Here, we absolutely have to track the promise accuracy rate. What percentage of the time did the actual delivery date match the initial quote date? And alongside that, the perfect order rate, PONR, which measures orders delivered complete, on time, undamaged, and with accurate documentation. No errors.
Got it. Reliability and trust. What's next?
Next is speed and efficiency. Here we track metrics like the order-to-ship cycle time, how fast are we getting orders out the door, and the overall cash conversion cycle, which is heavily influenced by the O2C process speed. How quickly are we turning orders into cash?
Makes sense. And the third category?
Cost and margin. This is crucial. We need to track deal margin integrity. What was the actual realized margin versus the margin quoted at the time of sale? And also fulfillment cost as a percentage of revenue. Is our cost to serve going up or down relative to revenue?
Okay. Using those metrics, let's focus specifically on quantifying that revenue leakage we keep mentioning. The delivery-related churn rate, the DRC, you highlighted earlier, that sounds like the most immediate danger signal flashing red.
It really is. The DRC is like the temperature gauge for customer trust regarding your operations. If that rate consistently exceeds, say, 10%, You have systemic erosion. It's a clear signal that your operational failures are actively driving your customers, probably your most frustrated ones, directly to your competitors.
But we also need to get more forensic about the costs themselves, right? Not just the churn outcome.
Absolutely. We need to accurately identify and account for all those hidden costs that silently eat away at the initial gross margin calculated by sales.
Good.
Things like emergency freight fees, excess warehousing costs due to delays, the administrative costs tied up in billing corrections and dispute resolution, carrier invoice mismatches.
Find the leaks.
Exactly. Auditing these specific leakage points provides the immediate, tangible targets for process improvement and cost reduction initiatives.
And this leads us, I think, to what feels like the gold standard in financial governance for this whole process. The actual reconciliation of all those variable fulfillment costs back to the margin that was promised in the original quote.
That's the calculation of deal margin integrity. It is fundamentally a variance analysis. What margin did we project at the time of sale versus what margin did we actually recognize after all the variable fulfillment costs, the real shipping costs, the actual labor hours, any special handling fees are fully applied to that specific order or deal.
This is where the rubber meets the road, financially speaking.
Absolutely. If you consistently find significant negative variances on certain types of deals or in certain regions or with certain sales teams, it isolates where operational cost creep is happening. It directs management attention precisely to the unprofitable sales behaviors or inefficient fulfillment processes that are actively undermining the company's profitability. It tells you very clearly which parts of your business are generating volume without actually generating sustainable profit.
Okay, so once that internal clarity and alignment is achieved, using DOM, using AI, using these metrics, we can then leverage that newfound reliability externally, right? Transparency in this sense becomes a loyalty mechanism, a brand equity multiplier.
Absolutely. That internal integrity enables external transparency, and that transparency turns logistics, which used to be hidden, into a powerful competitive weapon.
How does that play out?
Well, the best example is that proactive delay handling we talked about earlier. When the AI flags an order as at risk, and the commercial organization intervenes with radical honesty before the customer even has to pick up the phone or send an angry email, that builds incredible trust.
Right, it shows you're on top of it.
Exactly. Proactive communication about a potential service failure, coupled with an immediate, tangible mitigation plan, fundamentally builds trust and loyalty. It takes what should be a negative event and transforms it into a positive service moment. That's something competitors, especially those stuck with legacy systems and reactive processes, find incredibly difficult to replicate consistently.
The sources also often cite this need to view reverse logistics returns not as just a pure cost center, but as a potential customer experience multiplier.
That perspective shift is absolutely essential for succeeding in the everything is a service economy, where the relationship is ongoing. Think about it. Liberal, easy, and transparent return policies significantly reduce a customer's perceived purchase risk.
Makes them more willing to buy in the first place.
Precisely. Yeah. And it encourages higher sales volume overall, and critically higher repurchase rates. We should actually measure the success of our reverse logistics, not just by cost, but by the repurchase rate following a return.
Interesting metric.
If a customer returns a product, maybe it was in the wrong size, wrong spec, but they immediately turn around and buy something else from you because the return process was painless and fair. Then your fulfillment system, including returns, successfully mitigated the initial loss and actually protected the long-term customer lifetime value. That kind of distribution differentiation, making even returns easy, is often much, much harder for competitors to match than simply tweaking a product feature or adjusting a price point. Hashtag tag outro.
Well, this deep dive really confirms, I think, a critical transformation that's underway. The supply chain, fulfillment, logistics, it has definitively shifted from being on the periphery, maybe seen as just a cost, to being absolutely core to commercial strategy and success.
No question.
In this modern economy, every single sales quote isn't just a quote. It's a living commitment that requires continuous, intelligent validation and management across the entire enterprise.
And the ultimate measure, I believe, of commercial leadership success itself is evolving rapidly. It's shifting away from just achieving gross revenue targets, hitting that top line number at all costs, and moving towards maintaining what we might call revenue integrity margin.
Revenue integrity margin, explain that.
It's about profitable growth, yes, but growth that is stable, reliable, and fundamentally free from that structural debt imposed by operational failures and broken promises. So Investment in the right technologies, distributed order management, AI, predictive visibility, it isn't really an optional optimization expense anymore.
It's foundational.
It's the essential defensive strategy against catastrophic revenue leakage, and it's simultaneously the most powerful long-term investment you can make in building premium brand equity through reliable execution.
So, the final thought for you, our listeners. If fulfillment reliability is now truly the core brand promise, what part of your current commercial strategy, your sales incentives, your metrics, what part is currently rewarding sheer volume over verifiable, profitable, reliable delivery? And crucially, what is the quantifiable cost of that misalignment in your organization today? Answering that question, that's your starting point for achieving genuine revenue integrity.